What's up, everybody? Zoo Tour Guide Zach Handel here. Our next tour is back in the center of Ohio and its capital, at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, arguably the nation's greatest zoo. Last week on Zoo Tours Trivia, I asked you guys what United States zoo has the largest population of gorillas. The Zoo Atlanta, right? That was my guess too. Well, it is wrong. Now, who wouldn't believe this? They have 5 total exhibits with 20 gorillas in multiple troops. But apparently, other sources say that the Bronx Zoo actually has more than 20. I never got the exact number, even though I did ask the zoo, and my message was ignored. Regardless, I'll take that as the answer, unless someone can prove me wrong. So good job to the only 3 that apparently answered correctly. However, if you were to Google this, you'd get this misleading answer. So how about we all agree just to blame Google? Okay, so now here's a question with a clear, definitive answer. This major celebrity attempted to purchase Keiko, the famous orca, to keep at their very own home. Who is this celebrity? Guess below and I'll tell you the answer next week. Last time we were here, I introduced you to some of Columbus's rescued gentle giants in the Shores region. Now let's go from under the streets, literally, to one of the world's finest attractions, the Asia Quest. Compared to many exhibits in other zoos that opened decades ago and have stood the test of time, this one is relatively new. It opened just over a decade ago in 2 different phases and does a great job at immersing its wildlife and habitats with the scenery built around it. Its first few displays focuses on animals of Central and Southeast Asia, and as you move along, the more northern creatures you come across. It doesn't display a whole lot of species, but you run into some that are lesser known and some that are beloved by all. And then there's some that most people cower away from. So here's a breakdown of the Columbus Zoo's Asia Quest. It opened in 2006. There are 23 exhibits displaying a total of around 85 animals from 32 different species, 5 of which are considered endangered. Its greatest strength is that everything is up to date. Some exhibits could even be considered the best of their kind. Most of the species we'll see are considered quite rare outside of their native range, including animals that can only be found at 2 or 3 other parks. Things it needs work on? Maybe a couple of the smaller exhibits could use a facelift. Regardless, this Asian-related attraction earns an A in my book. So enough intros. It's time to go through the Asia Quest at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. It begins with a stunning entrance that makes you walk between the tiger's feet. It's received some mixed reviews from the zoo community, but whatever you may think of it, there is no denying that this further proves that the Columbus Zoo isn't afraid to go all out when designing their attractions. Your first animals lie pretty far below your feet, and no, they don't pose any threat. If anything, the roles are reversed in that situation. Down here you'd find the endangered red-crowned crane that lives with the unusually fanged, tufted deer. The path takes you onto a bridge, but on the other side of it lives another fragile fanged deer. The Siberian musk deer, a vulnerable species that's hunted for their musk glands. It is expected that their population will decline by 30% in the coming generations, so they are getting rarer in the wild and are even rarer in zoos. They can only be found at 2 or 3 other parks in the United States. Even if they weren't this rare, they definitely are a species that is worth seeing. So if you ask me, that's not a bad way to start out this quest. A large bird and a couple of long-toothed deer that I'm sure many of you haven't seen or even heard of before. The next animal is the most active of the Asia Quest. Of course, in the winter, the Southeast Asian species isn't going to be outside, but we will see them in the Quest for Enlightenment Interpretive Center. You are graciously greeted with some stone statues of every recently living species of tiger, but you'll easily notice that some of them are destroyed, representing the species that have gone from this earth and fell to extinction. It's also hard to miss the dragon that holds a very large ball that plays a video informing guests on how the time to save Asia's wildlife is running out. There are many other attention-grabbing elements of this interpretive center that aren't animals, The murals and other simulated artifacts possibly reflects the markets of Central Asia, but the last of the displays is the most interesting of them all. It lists off species that have either bought train tickets for or have already boarded and met their demise in the extinction tunnel. Another good reason to believe that this is the country's greatest zoo. The only place I've been to that made me really think about the well-being of the world's endangered species using a creative and clever display. Alright, now back on with the animals. The first exhibit in here kind of looks like some sort of shed. Now let's see, where is he? Aha! There we go. There's the hairy guy from the Little Rock Zoo. Say hi to Reindeer, everyone. He is a sloth bear, and note, this isn't his entire home. He actually rotates with the Bornean sun bear in a fantastic outdoor exhibit that we will run into later again, without the blinds. Turn around and you are given possibly the most memorable sight of the Asia Quest. Both sides start out with very large temple-themed terrariums that also contain decent-sized reptiles. The first on the left, and I know I just went to the right, contains a common water monitor, and on the right contains the longest snake species in the world, the Reticulated Python. Now this may be the longest snake species in the world, but this exhibit actually was once home to the longest individual snake in the world. In 2007, the zoo first displayed Fluffy, also a reticulated python. The species usually grows between 10 to 20 feet, but Fluffy was 24 feet and 300 pounds, and was named the longest snake in the world by the Guinness Book of World Records. She unfortunately passed away in 2010. Moving along, here's one of the most atypical exhibits in the zoo. My guess is that it's disguised as some sort of garden plaza. There's gravel flooring, stone benches, potted plants, and oh yeah, giant bats. More specifically, two mega bats. The large flying fox and the golden mantled flying fox. I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty fascinating to be able to get this close to such a large species that usually gets a bad rep. They also share an exhibit with the self-reflection distracted magpie goose and the crested wood partridge, who really knows how to walk backwards in style. At the end of the interpretive center, we finally run into those creatures we missed outside. The Southeast Asian species I was referring to is the silvered leaf langur. There's actually two indoor exhibits where 4 troops reside. And with that many primates, there's bound to be breeding. These adult langurs have dark gray fur with silver tips. As I mentioned in the first Cleveland video, they are born bright orange, which is believed to encourage other females to assist in raising the young, a practice called allo-mothering, shown here. The Columbus Zoo is only one of 4 institutions that breeds the species. Well, just like this guy, it's time to move on. But we're only halfway done. As you exit the interpretive center, you're taken into a plaza that acts as a second entrance to the Asia Quest. But the most notable thing in here is the building that's right across from you, the Vanishing Giants, which opened as, and probably still is, North America's largest building for, well, you'll see. There are just 2 exhibits in here that are visible to guests. On the farthest right, the smaller of the 2, you'd always find the eastern black rhinoceros. Now wait, why is there a prominent African species in an Asian attraction? Well, here's why. This building is part of a sub-attraction, hence the reason for a second entrance to this complex. On the right side of the plaza are 3 outdoor yards, 1 for an elephant and 2 of them together for the black rhinos to make the Rhino Trek. Altogether, this area is referred to as the Pachyderm Building, which just also happens to be part of the Asia Quest. Although I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that the zoo was supposed to get Indian rhinos for this area, which would make sense. Oh well, moving on. Also within the Pachyderm Building is the reason people actually come in here in the first place. Meet the Columbus Zoo's Indian elephants. Even indoors, they have a pretty impressive home. It used to look quite bare like this, but luckily the zoo improved this just by simply adding a lot of sand. In the far corner, there's even a shower that falls from the ceiling. There are 6 total elephants. We have Sundara and Rudy, younger females that came to the zoo in 2016 from the Ringling Brothers. Then we have Connie and Phoebe, the 2 older females, along with Phoebe's son Becco, who can't seem to leave the ladies alone. Although technically he's just trying to do his job since Sundara and Rudy were brought here to help populate their declining species. To help out also is the big guy, Hank. He was born at Busch Gardens, Tampa, lived at the Bronx Zoo, and basically worked for the company Have Trunk with Travel. At 15,000 pounds and standing at nearly 10 feet, he is the largest of his kind in North America. Okay, to save the PG-13 rating for next Wednesday, we'll be moving on. But if you're ever here, be sure to look up and read the well-known quote by Baba Diom. In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. We are now continuing on to the second half of the Asia quest. But here, we're kind of going back and looking at the first half. This is the sloth/sun bear exhibit I gave a preview of earlier. It is arguably the greatest of its kind in a US zoo. It's so well put together because apparently it was actually intended to house giant pandas, which the zoo did exhibit in today's African forest section back in 1992. Even though they aren't pandas, it's nice to see other rare tropical bears displayed here. We saw the indoor elephant space. Now it's time to show you their entire outdoor home. It's 1.5 acres large, excluding the out-of-sight private yard. The guest path takes you in the middle of it so the elephants can surround you from nearly all directions, and can even swim within just a few feet from where you're standing. The excitement still isn't over yet. Now begins the tiger forest. As you wander through the rest of the trail, you'll notice these spread out metal cutout tigers of those species still living and those extinct, similar to those statues in the interpretive center. So from now on, we'll mainly run into animals that are native to the central and northern parts of Asia. On your first stop, you are met with an open-topped yard filled with plenty of tall, lively trees, and are encouraged to look up because you'd find the high-climbing red panda. Following is one of my favorite exhibits, the pheasant aviary, which unfortunately is closed during the colder months. Even though it displays cold native creatures, it is a walk-through attraction where there won't be any staff to watch over the guests during the winter months. However, for those afraid of birds, you can view them from a very large window on the side, and it contains the northern shoveler and the white-naped crane right here in front. There's also the chukar, the cattle egret, the Lord Derby's parakeet, magpie geese, golden pheasants, white-crested laughing thrushes, Chinese huamais, mountain bamboo partridges, crested wood partridges, black-throated laughing thrushes, Nicobar pigeons, azure-winged magpies, and even a Reeve's Muntjac. And for such a shy species, this one certainly isn't afraid to get too close to its observers. Ready to take a break from those forests? Good, because we're coming along the highlands of the Middle East, home to one of the world's most unique-looking wild goats. But let's take a look from another angle in Asia Quest's second themed building. This contains the Markhor, a specialist at climbing, so it's a good thing that their exhibit is now enclosed, because it wasn't always like that. The very first day that they were on exhibit, one of them escaped and fell into the neighboring enclosure that you do not want to be in. Luckily, no one was eaten. According to a 2017 article, apparently the wild goats also lived with a free-flying Eurasian eagle owl, a mix like no other. But according to a recent update, that is no longer the case. The next creature is a bit smaller, and they're experts at both climbing and hiding. The Pallas cat, which out of excitement, because I've never seen them in this enclosure before, I could not stay still. So for cat lovers, here's a couple of shots I took to make up for it. Here's a fun fact about them. The Pallas cat's lifespan in human care is approximately 12 years old, but in the wild, they usually only live for 27 months due to the harsh environmental conditions they live in. In the final room are the animals I mentioned that you don't want to share the same space with. The largest cat in the world, the Amur Tiger, which all live in a 13,000 square foot yard resembling a taiga forest. Easily one of the best of its kind in America. And the exhibit hasn't been sparse lately. On July 12th and 13th of 2017, 4 cubs were born to Mother Mara. One of them sadly didn't survive. However, this is her 3rd litter born at the zoo. And 3 were also born in the spring of 2016. As far as I know, they're all here and well, and just look how big they are already. You'd think that'd be the finale. Well, nope, we still got a couple of big cats left on our quest. Actually, it's another major African species that probably shouldn't be here. And yeah, if you didn't guess by now, it's the African lion. Actually, they're in here because they came from a litter that was born in the Heart of Africa exhibit. But as 2 growing males, they need to be removed from the pride. It is a nice coincidence because before the Heart of Africa opened, this was actually home to the zoo's main lions. This remaining area is basically one giant boardwalk that leads you to a shelter in between 2 exhibits. So yes, there is one more. So the last animal on our tour is once again the Amur Tiger. And our quest in Asia has come to a close. Hope you enjoyed this very extensive walkthrough in one of the country's unparalleled attractions. Rare bears, cats, elephants, what more could you ask for? Well, I'll tell you. You could request that at least one of those animals swims right over your head, and pretty soon I'll be prepared to show you that. Before I give you a preview of the next episode, I need your help. This Sunday, I want to film another zoo, but I can't decide on where I should go. Should I continue to film the highlights of the Columbus Zoo, or should I expand zoo tours to St. Louis, my all-time favorite zoo, or Detroit, a place that I've never actually been to? Both I know are fantastic places. St. Louis is very historical and has an unmatched species list of rare creatures. However, Detroit has much better attention-seeking attractions like the new Penguinarium and the Arctic Ring of Life, the country's greatest polar complex. I'm leaning more towards Detroit, but I'll leave it up to you. So comment below which of the 3 options you'd like to see, and I'll go based on the number of votes. So long everyone, and thanks again for watching Zoo Tours, and I'll see you again on Wednesday.